A key aspect of a customer relationship management strategy is customer service. Microsoft Dynamics 365 provides many features organizations can use to manage the services they provide to customers. It includes an extensive set of features designed to increase the efficiency of customer service operations. This module introduces some of the terminology and scenarios used within the customer service application, while also covering the core components of case management. In this module, the objectives are to provide an overview of service management, to explain the basic record types that make up the customer service application, as well as to explore what type of cases there are and how to manage them. To better understand the context of the customer service application, let's review some real-life scenarios. The first scenario is addressing and solving customer or product issues. Paul Cannon is a customer at Contoso Bicycle. He recently discovered that the suspension on his Contoso mountain bike is defective and not functioning correctly. So Paul contacts Contoso Bicycles to discuss the issue and to obtain help with his bike. The issue is logged in the mountain bike support request queue, and Rob is the support specialist for Contoso Bicycles regarding mountain bikes. And he receives the issue through Microsoft Dynamics 365. Rob will work with Paul to schedule a service activity to repair or replace Paul's suspension. Then we also have receiving and answering customer questions. Jim Glenn is a customer at Fabricam Furniture. He recently received a new table he purchased through the Fabricam website. And although Jim tries to assemble the new table, he's not sure if he's assembling the table correctly. Therefore, Jim contacts Fabricam Furniture to ask questions and to obtain help with his table. The question is received by Sydney, who's a customer support specialist at Fabricam Furniture. Sydney uses the knowledge base in the Dynamics 365 environment to find a frequently asked question document for this particular table. She then uses that document to help answer some of Jim's questions. And then we also have collecting and applying customer feedback. Maria is the products manager for tables and chairs at Fabricam Furniture. She wants to be able to collect feedback about the at-home assembly process when customers contact Fabricam. She uses the case management functionality of Microsoft Dynamics 365 to capture this feedback. She's also able to analyze the tables and chairs that are the most troublesome for at-home assembly, and as well as the products that are easier to assemble. Additionally, Maria can determine the instructions that must be prioritized for editing and review for the at-home set of tables and chairs assembly. So the customer service application provides the ability of not only addressing and solving customer and product issues, but as well as being able to answer customer questions and be able to collect that information to be able to further analyze and improve product information or service available for customers within the Dynamics 365 environment. So before going further and taking a look deeper into the case management, let's take a look at and understand some of the record types that are used within the customer service application. When learning a new concept, software, or process, a great place to start is to learn the terminology and to begin to understand how they fit into the big picture. This lesson reviews the basic record types that are used for the service management application. First, we'll begin with customer records. Typically, customer service requests using Microsoft Dynamics 365 will be managed in relation to an existing contact or account record. These contacts and accounts are the same contacts and accounts which are used by other areas or by other business operations such as sales or marketing. As we've discussed previously, a contact represents a person and an account represents companies or organizations. And while these are typical uses of accounts or contacts, different Dynamics 365 deployments might use these record types differently. Within the default application, these are collectively referred to as customers. When entering the customer value on a case, for example, the user is able to choose either an account or contact. Next, we have cases. Cases are the fundamental record type in service management and represents a single incidence of service. Different organizations may refer to cases using different terms, including incident, ticket, service request, and so forth. In other words, cases are anything in the context of a customer interaction that requires some type of resolution or answer. Now, it's possible a customer can have many cases that are associated with his or her record at any time. Within Dynamics 365, users have the ability to see open and resolved cases from the customer record. Cases can also have activities associated to them, so everyone in the organization can see what's happening with a particular case. Additionally, cases can have knowledge base articles, subjects, products, and entitlements associated to them as related or dependent record types. Then we also have activities. Activities are interactions between a business and their customers that are deemed important enough to track within Dynamics 365. As mentioned, activities can be associated with cases as well as other types of records. For example, when looking at all of the activities associated with an account or contact, the user can open the record and find activities located under closed activities or opened activities. Next, we have resolution activities. Now, once all activities regarding a case are resolved, the case itself can be resolved. When the case is resolved, an activity type named resolution activity is created. This activity is found only in the closed activities associated with the case and displays the activity's resolution as well as how much time was spent on the case. And then we have queues. A queue is a place to organize and store activities and cases that are waiting to be processed. Microsoft Dynamics 365 includes queuing and workflow tools to improve how incoming requests for sales and customer service are handled. A queue can be considered as a box where items are sent to and then retrieved by someone to handle. So for example, an organization might have a support team whose email address is support@contoso.com. If the support team receives an email message that is sent to this address, a member of the team handles the support case and works to resolve the issue for the customer. We also have knowledge base articles. The knowledge base is a repository of informational articles that can be used to help customer service representatives resolve cases. In some organizations, the knowledge base is also used to provide Microsoft Dynamics 365 users with information about how to not only resolve issues, but to answer questions as well. Knowledge-based articles can also be emailed to a customer, which can be sent either through the Dynamics 365 interface or through the Microsoft Dynamics apps for Outlook. Then we also have entitlements. Entitlements can be used to specify the amount of support services for which a customer is entitled. For example, a customer's entitlement in Dynamics 365 might allot 10 support cases that they can use at their discretion. Once the customer uses all of their allotments on the entitlement, they will no longer be able to associate any more cases with that entitlement. And then associated to entitlements are entitlement channels. Entitlement channels specify the type of service a customer is entitled to. Some examples of entitlement channels are phone, email, web, or even Facebook. So a customer could have 5 entitlements through email and 5 entitlements through a web interface. We have service level agreements or SLAs. SLAs define the level of service or support that your organization agrees to offer to a customer. For example, a customer signs a service level agreement stating that all support cases would be resolved within 2 business days. It is now our responsibility as a company to make sure that that happens. It's also possible to associate an SLA with an entitlement so that when an entitlement is added to a case, the associated SLA is applied. The last of the entity and record types include Subject tree. The subject tree is a hierarchical list of subjects an organization can use to classify service cases and other records in Microsoft Dynamics 365. The subject field is presented as a lookup field on the default case form and is often used to classify cases. Then we also have products. Products within Dynamics 365 product catalog can be related to a particular case and helps provide a more detailed view of cases, resolutions, and customer feedback at a product level. Now, it's important to note that while products can be associated to a case to better categorize particular types of cases, there are no transaction aspects of cases that leverage products for pricing or invoicing. In addition, the use of products with cases is optional and may not be applicable for all organizations. Next, there are goals. Organizations can use the goal management feature to establish and track progress against target values for key performance indicators, or KPIs. For service management, these might include metrics such as cases resolved or in-progress cases. And finally, there's the scheduling module. The scheduling module allows users to find qualified resources that are available to provide specific services to customers. For example, if a customer contacts a service user asking if someone can come on site to provide a specific service, the user could create a service activity and from there identify the service as well as the time frame the customer would like the service provided. Now, while this module is technically part of the overall service entity, some organizations may not find it applicable to use in their business and will choose not to leverage that functionality. So now that we've spent some time talking about the various record types, let's go in and spend a little bit more time talking about cases and case management. As we've mentioned, the purpose of a case is to track customer issues, questions, and requests and manage them through a resolution. When working with cases, one of the most important things you're trying to accomplish is to resolve the case. So let's discuss some of the options involved when dealing with cases. First, let's discuss resolving cases. Cases can be resolved in many ways. Sometimes the issue could be resolved without having to do research or use other resources. However, sometimes the customer service agent must perform research on the issue to determine how other agents resolve similar issues by checking the knowledge base. Sometimes the issue may need to be escalated. Regardless of the effort, a case cannot be resolved until all activities related to the case, such as telephone calls, letters, appointments, or email messages, are completed. This prevents anyone from accidentally closing a case before all workflow or mandated activities are finished. Now also, when it comes to deleting and canceling cases, sometimes a customer might contact the organization and require that a case is created in Dynamics 365. However, there are occasions when the customer changes its mind and no longer needs assistance. Users of the application have two choices. They can either cancel or delete the case. And although a case can be deleted, like with other record types in the system, doing this removes all activities, notes, and attachments that are linked to that case. Additionally, this is a permanent action. Therefore, the record of the customer's issue is lost. So unless you're sure that the record will not be needed in the future, a better choice is to cancel the case. Also, many organizations configure the security rules in Dynamics 365 so that users cannot delete cases. This helps avoid incorrect deletions. Canceling the case keeps the record in the system for reactivation later if it's necessary. And then we also have the ability to reactivate cases. The customer service representative worked with the customer, resolved the issue, and closed the case. Now, the customer called back and the issue related to the earlier resolved case is still occurring. Instead of opening a new case, the issue can reactivate the original case to continue to work through the issue. It's also possible to assign a case to a user. After a case is created, any agent can assign a case to another customer agent or another user in the system or even to a queue. In Microsoft Dynamics 365, many record types have what is known as an owner. Ownership of a record means that either the person or the team that is designated as the owner of the record is responsible for managing that record. When a business scenario requires the owner of the record changes, a record is assigned to a different person or a team. And then lastly, we have the ability to assign a case to a queue. In some organizations, because of the complexity of their customer service processes, or just for the purpose of quickly and easily managing their cases, cases can be assigned to a queue. As we discussed previously, think of a queue as a bucket. Microsoft Dynamic Queues can be used to help in service management scenarios, such as managing incoming email message support requests. For example, a queue can be configured to accept incoming email messages, and queue items can be converted to cases if this is appropriate. Now that we understand a few of the basic elements of case management, let's walk through how cases are created and managed and even assigned to a queue in Dynamics 365. All right, so we're back in the system. To take a look at case management and some of the functionalities behind dealing with cases and ways to resolve them, we're going to go to the Service Business application. And from the Service Business application, we're going to go under the Service section and choose Cases. Now, very similar to some of the other record types that we have in the system, you'll see that we have different system views that allow us to look at and see cases that we're currently working on. So you'll see that, again, we actually have My Active Cases as being the default view. But as with the other record types, you'll see that I have quite a few out-of-the-box system views that are available to me. So for example, I can see My Active Cases opened in the last 7 days, or My Active Cases with parent-child statuses, as well as My Resolved Cases, and even My Team's Resolved Cases. And then as long as I have the appropriate permissions, I can even look at active cases. So you'll see that there are 22 active cases. And in looking at those active cases, you'll see that I can see the owner. And in this case, they're all assigned to me. Now, as far as going in and taking a look at the ability to create new cases, as with the other record types that we have in the system, we have several ways that we can go about this. We can use our Quick Create functionality, or we can use the Create New Case action that we have in our command bar. And if you look in the command bar, you'll see that we do have standardized commands. Some of them are similar to some of the other functionalities that we have in other record types. Some of them are going to be specific to working with cases. So if I want to go in, I want to create a case. Again, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use my Quick Create functionality. And under Records, I'm going to click on Case. Now, when you click on Case, you'll see that we have several required fields. We do have to assign it to an existing customer, as well as giving it a title and assigning it to a user. And as with similar records types in the system, by default, it is assigned to the user that creates the case. So on this one, I'm actually going to, this is related to Tray Research. Tray Research is having a problem with the 3D printer and it's not printing correctly. So this is where I can have the associated customer. In the title, we can just call this 3D printer not printing correctly. Now, as we discussed, you'll see I do have the subject tree, and I can go in and assign this to specific subjects. Now, the default of setting up the subject tree, of course, goes outside the scope of this course, but you will see that there are some predefined subjects that are automatically set up. I can also assign a case type to it, whether it's a request, a problem, or a question. In this case, it's going to be a problem. And then the person that I want to be able to contact is going to be Tony Poe. Now, it is also possible, especially when you're working with cases, is that we might have multiple people from the same company contacting us regarding other issues. So we can go in, and as long as we have those contacts set up, but also as we've mentioned, when I click on more records, as with some of the other record types, I have the ability of going in and creating new contacts. When it comes to case management, many companies will have it to where they might want to have designated people within their organization to be contacting companies for support. So that can vary as to what the regulations and what your internal policies are as to going in and managing contacts when it comes to working with cases. You'll also see I can choose as far as the origin. So let's say that Tony sent me an email. And then as also we talked about, I have the ability to be able to assign this to a specific product. And if Trey Research had purchased entitlements or let's say certain number of support cases available to them, I can also associate an entitlement to this. And then as necessary, I can put in a further description. So I might just say the 3D printer printing stalls before completing the print job. Now, it's also possible that, again, depending on how we're working with, is if this is something that came in from an email and we're using the Dynamics application for Outlook, we could actually take that email and convert it to a case directly within the application itself. And as part of that, the description would be what we have within the email. In this case, though, for the brevity of the demo, we're going to go ahead and just manually enter this in. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to save the case. And then once I save the case, we're going to go in and look at the case form. So I'm going to go ahead and click on View Record. And as we've looked at, very similar to having a business process flow that we have regarding the sales application, we also can have a resolution process flow related to working with cases. So you'll see that in going through, this one's the out of the box one is pretty basic in that we assign a customer, a contact, and then being able to go through and create the case. From there, it goes to researching it to resolving it. But again, this business process flow can be customized to be able to suit your organization's customer service resolution processes. So in taking a look at some of the other components, you'll see, just like with other record types that we have in the system, we have our interaction wall. And in looking at this, you'll see also that most of the information that I entered within the Quick Create is being populated. I do have my product where I can associate different products to it. And when it comes to as far as going through and looking at the different forms, as we mentioned, the form itself is similar to some of the other standard forms that we see within the Dynamics 365 system, but this is one that you'll see can be very long. So this is where using the tab selector can come in handy. So if I want to see if there's other cases that are related to this particular case, I can very quickly and easily move to those tabs without having to do a lot of scrolling to find that information. So you'll see, like under additional details, it identifies the type. If I have a parent case that I want to associate it, this is where it's found. If I want to be able to escalate it, this is where, again, I can have a trigger to escalate this and let's say move it to a high priority queue. I can even go in and designate as follow up by on a certain date and be able to let anyone else know when it comes to our service level agreements that the first or follow or initial response have been sent. And then you'll see that I can even be able to track social details to be able to have social profiles depending on how we want to be able to pull that information and if there's related articles or contract information. So going through and again working with the cases, the case form itself can be very long. You'll also notice on the case form over on the right hand side is where we can have customer details. So we can have their email if we have an email associated to that customer, as well as phone number. And then even from that case, I can see if there are other cases that are out there to be able to go in and do additional research to see maybe if this one might be associated to an existing one that's either still open or that has been resolved recently. Now, in this particular one, you'll see that we don't have any other cases. So going through and again looking at this information, you'll see that when I click on posts, that it gives me the details that the case was created. I also have my relationship assistant, so if I need to do any kind of activities to follow up regarding this case, the relationship assistant will be able to provide guidance and remind me that I have outstanding tasks that need to be performed. And then from the activities, you'll also see I have the ability right from here to be able to create new activities associated to this case. Now, as a reminder, when we talked about as far as working with these activities, we do not have the ability to resolve this case until all activities have been completed. But let's say that we've gone through and we've looked at this case, we've followed up with Tony, we've gotten additional details as to what the problem was, and we're now able to resolve it. If you look within the case form, you'll see that we have several types of actions that are related to being able to manage this case, whether it is resolving it, canceling it, adding it to a queue, or even assigning it to another user. And then just like with the other record types that we also have more commands where I can share it, I can follow it, I can even start dialog boxes or run certain reports. Now in this situation, what I am going to go ahead and do is we want to be able to resolve the case. So if I click on Resolve Case, as we mentioned, you'll see that we now have a resolution activity form that's going to pop up. And I have the option when it comes to how did I resolve the case, that out of the box, there are two options that we either solve the problem or we provided information. Now again, it's outside the scope of this course, but this is something that can be customized using the customization functionality within the Dynamics 365 system. I can also give a brief description as to what the resolution was. So I might be able to say remotely recalibrated the printer and verified it printed correctly. Now you'll also see that I have a total time, and it's considered a read-only field. That total time will be an accumulation of any completed activities that I have associated to this case. So if I had a 30-minute phone call and a 15-minute email, the total time that would show up on this case would be 45 minutes. And then you'll also see that the billable time is a required field. And so from here, you'll see that I can choose in different increments, or if I wanted to, I can actually click within that field and I can overwrite that value and type in any kind of value that I want to. Now it's important to note that the billable time, even though it says billable time, this does not have any type of billable transaction within the Dynamics 365 system. What this just means is this is the amount of time that we may have spent to it, but it does not necessarily associate or create a bill for this case for this customer. And then if I need to, I can also add additional remarks to be able to go through and resolve this case. So once I've done that and I click on Resolve, you'll now see that once that case is resolved, the status changes to being resolved. The case itself is marked read-only, and then you'll see that my status is considered problem resolved. And as we mentioned, it also creates that resolution activity. So anyone else within the system can be able to go in and see the history behind what was done to resolve this particular issue. And so if I close this case and I go back to my active cases, so I've got 22 cases that are currently out there. If I go in and I look under my resolved cases, you'll now see that there is our resolved case that we have out there. So it automatically moved it from one view to the other based on that status. Now, let's say that we went through and we recalibrated that 3D printer, but a day later, Tony calls up again and said, we're still having this issue. We thought it was resolved, but it's now still doing the same thing where it's getting stuck in the print queue. So I can always go back in, and regardless of where I am, so let's say I go to the account record and I pull up the account, and you'll see even from the account record that I can see all of the information and all kinds of activities and communications that I've had with Tray Research. So even from the account, if I want to go in, I want to look at the case itself, I can drill down from the account level and be able to open the case. And when I open the case, I can look at this and say, you know what, I need to continue to work on it. So you'll see that because it is considered read-only and it was marked as resolved, the actions I have available in my command bar are now going to be set up according to that status. So I can come in here and I can reactivate my case. And you'll see it's going to ask you, are you sure you want to do this? And I can click on reactivate. And now, once I click on reactivate, you'll notice that the resolution activity that we had out there has now been marked as canceled. And so now I can continue to work on this case as necessary. So let's say I add a phone call. And so right from the case itself, I have the ability of going in, adding a phone call, and let's say that it was done today at 2 o'clock, and I can select OK. Oh, let's see if we can put a description, select OK. And now you'll see that I actually have a phone call that's associated to it. Now, when I have that phone call that's associated to it, if I try to go in and resolve the case under the problem solved, let's say that we rebooted the computer and cleared print queue and recalibrated the printer again. And let's say on this one, it actually took about an hour and a half to complete. Click on resolve, and now you'll see that I can actually have the phone call as well as the new resolution case so that it will go in and actually track the history behind each one of those. Now, the other thing I can do is I'm going to go ahead and close out, since this case is now considered resolved. I'm going to close out of that case, and then we'll close out of the account form itself. And I'm going to go back to my active cases. So you see, in my active cases, I have quite a bit of cases that are out there. So to help alleviate this, this is where I might want to be able to go in and assign a case to another user. So in going through, let's say that I have with this case for City Power and Light. Now, I have the ability to be able to assign this case to a user not only within the form, but also directly within the view. I can come in here and you'll see that I have that assign action. And not only can I assign this to a case, but I can also add it directly to a queue right from my view. So on this particular one, I do want to assign this to a case, or I want to assign it to another user. So I'm going to mark the checkbox next to the case that I want to be able to assign. And you'll see that I have the ability, if I want to assign multiple cases to another user, I can simply highlight the cases that I wanted to be able to assign and then click on the assign action. From here, you'll see that I have the ability of assigning it to a user or team. And then again, I can do a lookup, find the user I want to assign it to, and then click assign. Now, when I do, you'll see that I've only got 17 cases. But now if I go back out and I look at active cases, you'll now see that CRM demo user has now been assigned to those cases. And not only do I have the ability to assign cases to users, but as we talked about, I can also go in and I can route cases to different queues. So let's say if I resort this by priority, and I've got several high priority cases that need to be resolved. So to be able to escalate them, it might be where I select the cases, and again, you'll see I have the ability of selecting multiple cases. And then from here, I can click on the Add to Queue. And then I can be able to go in and look up the queue. So let's say, for example, I have a queue out there called High Priority. When I click on the Add button, again, you'll now see that it does not remove those cases from my active cases. But what it will do is now, when I go to my queue, or when I go to the queues, I can go in and I can look at all items for the high priority queue, and you'll now see that anybody in the high priority can now come in and be able to work on these cases. So when they come in and they select the case that they want to be able to work on, they can choose pick, and when they choose pick, it now will assign that to me. And so now if I go in and say, I just want to look at all the cases or all the items I'm working on, you'll now see that allows me to manage those cases, or those what they call queue items, to be able to work on them appropriately. Now, one other thing that I just want to be able to go through and talk about when it comes to case management is when it comes to case management, not only do we have the ability of being able to have multiple activities and be able to manage those activities within the cases and be able to have our relationship assistant, but you'll also notice is in this interactive wall or interaction wall, I have the ability of having KB records. So when I click on the KB records, what it will do is you'll notice that it takes the actual name of the case and automatically searches to see if there are any relative KB articles that I might want to be able to review to be able to manage this case. So I can actually take a look at this article, and then from here, using that same pop-out functionality, I can click on the pop-out to be able to go through and review it. And I can say, you know what, that's very much what I want to be able to do. So on this particular one, you'll see that one of the options I can do is I can link this KB article to the case, or I can link the article and email the content to the customer. So if I click on the option to email the link to the customer, you'll see that it automatically will come in, pulls the detail of that article, puts in as far as the to from field. I can now put in my subject, and then from here, I can now send this email directly from the Dynamics 365 system. For now, I'm going to go ahead and just save and close that, because what you also want to be able to see is what it will do is in the case, when I go to the KB records, you'll see that I now have a visual indication letting me know it's linked. But then also, if I use my tab selector and I can go to associated knowledge records, you'll now see it also shows up as being that associated knowledge record. So if any other user or any other customer agent has a similar experience or a similar issue, when they go through and they read the description and they look at what this issue is, they can now go in and be able to find that KB article that's linked to it to also be able to go in and resolve those issues. So when it comes to case management in the system, there's a lot of options that we can use to make sure that we're able to address our customer issues in a very effective and timely manner so that we can maintain our customer satisfaction. In the customer service application, there are various types of elements involved. As we've learned with case management, a case might be considered a support case, a question, or a request. Its functionality allows organizations to manage issues or questions to a resolution. Now, there are many additional areas to the customer service business application, and I invite you to watch the customer service related courses for more details on these additional items, such as service level agreements, entitlements, and the knowledge base. In this module, the objectives were to provide an overview of service management, to explain the basic record types that make up the customer service application, as well as to explore what types of cases there are and how to manage them.